just so you know, Cranmer was the Archbishop of Canterbury who gave Henry VIII his divorce and basically created the Church of England for Henry VIII and dissed the Pope. He, as soon as Henry VIII was in the grave, he started writing the Book of Common Prayer, which was the new liturgy. And it stressed things. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you people. Not facing ad orientem during the liturgy. Communion in the hand. Removal of images, especially shrines of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Statues, crucifixes were removed. Sacred art, icons. They were retained in a way with good taste, but what had been Catholic decor was stripped down. Just like in modern Novus Ordo churches, you'll still see a cross or some kind of modernized crucifix, but the extravagance that existed from before the Second Vatican Council through the Baroque period into the Tridentine period, all that has been washed away. He wanted wooden altars that he called communion tables. He didn't want altars. Stone altars especially he was against, because stone altars denote sacrifice and they denote the tomb of Christ. So all of these things Cranmer was pushing for, and then suddenly you have Bugnini bringing in Protestant consultors, and he starts putting forth the liturgy of Cranmer. There was a great show I did with Ryan Grant where we talked about, it was Ryan Grant defending the traditional Latin Mass and private Masses, and we looked at Robert Bellarmine's book. And Robert Bellarmine basically is refuting Cranmer and the Reformation ideas of liturgy. And it sounds like a book against the Novus Ordo when you read it. Against private Masses, against communion in the hand, against the way they faced, the rituals, the rites, the holy water, the incense, all of these things Bellarmine is defending against the Protestants.
Right. So you have, I just sent you the PDF, if you could share that, the over at Whispers of Restoration, okay. They have a great deal of good content. They made
How'd
a
you
chart.
Send it? Skype?
Oh, on Skype? Yeah.
Got it.
So they have this chart which compares Cranmer to the Novus Ordo. And it's not exactly one for 100%, but it's very close. And we have to understand what our fathers went through. This rite was imposed on them, and they chose death or hiding priests. They resisted for 300 years plus until the Catholics in England were finally given a legal status. They resisted for 300 plus years, this Cranmer rite. So I think that especially for all the priests listening or considering this issue, is this a grave cause? Is this a manifestly grave cause? That's not something that I can answer for you at all. I'm just this little layman, But this is a situation where we've been through this for 50 years. Is this, as like we said, Lefebvre refused to say the new Mass because he viewed it as a danger to the faith. Now, we also want to make obviously distinctions between the new Mass being a valid consecration. It confers sacramental grace. These things are true. And many people often think that, oh, well, you're saying that all Novus Ordo people are, crazy. Well, no, absolutely not.
Heretical.
No,
we're not saying
of course, that. We're just talking about the rite itself. If you just look at this chart, look at Cranmer, look at the Novus Ordo. Is this does any pope have the right to impose what the enemies of the faith originally tried to do 500 years ago to destroy everybody's faith? Does any pope have the right to mimic that? I mean, think of all the blood of all the martyrs that were shed in England because of this issue. And this is just incredible. And in fact, that was really one of the earliest indult mass was in England. They had the famous Agatha Christie Mass. This should have been a wake-up call for Paul VI. Even non-Catholics were saying, please keep the Latin Mass going. I think it was 1971, if I recall. But there was one of the signers was Agatha Christie, who was not a Catholic. But even in England, they recognized that we want to keep the Latin Mass. We recognize the cultural significance of this, even if we're not even Catholic.
Yeah, there was many, including Tolkien was one of them. Agatha Christie was another. It's in Infiltration, that wrote Paul VI and said, please do not make this mandatory. And the story is Paul VI was not impressed, and he was reading through all the signatures on the list, and he saw Agatha Christie's name on there, and he liked Agatha Christie, so he said, okay. And he issued this special indult so that the Latin Mass could be said. It's a cool little liturgical nugget, factoid in the history of the church. Thank you, Agatha Christie, for who was not, like you said, was not a Catholic.
Right.
But she understood the mystery of the Roman Mass, and the grandeur of the Roman Mass requires that the old, what we call the extraordinary form, the traditional Latin Mass, had to be retained. And it probably because she was an artist, she was a writer. She understood the literary form. She knew this had to be protected.
Right. So, I mean, is this the hill to die on? That's what every priest has to ask himself.